The Islamic State crucified 5 men in Al-Mayadin for eating during daylight hours of the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan. Wake up, folks. How, as they say, smell the coffee. 5 people crucified for not fasting during daylight hours and the smiting, the cutting off of heads. All the journalists would have had to have done to recognize this has nothing to do with anything other than fundamental Islam is read the Quran. In the Quran, in the 8th surah, Muslims are ordered to smite people at their neck, to cut off their heads. And then in the 5th surah, Muslims are told to crucify anybody who does not submit to Islam. And we can't get people to speak out hatefully against this religion. If you don't hate crucifixion, if you don't hate women having their heads cut off, if you don't hate these kinds of things, what's wrong with you? If you don't hate them enough to speak out against them, have you no conscience? Have you no soul? Have you no character? Have you no backbone? You know, what's wrong with you is to put a coexist bumper sticker on the back of your car who say, we got too much hate out there. The problem is hate. No, the problem is we don't hate enough. How in the world do you think that we can coexist with those that would cut off women's heads, who would crucify people for not observing their religion? If you don't hate that, then you're incapable of love. There's a time to hate. There's a time to bow your back and speak out and show that you have a conscience, that you have character. There's time to shed your ignorance, time to stand up. Of all of the false institutions of humankind, the single most destructive, deceitful, damning, and violent is Islam. It is extraordinarily abusive to women. I mean, where else would a woman be stoned to death for having been raped? Where else would a woman be beheaded because she won't submit to your particular interpretation of your religion? Where else would you declare war on all of the world and tell people they're authorized to act as terrorists? And here's the Islamic State telling Muslims the world over that they are obligated to engage in jihad and to kill all Shiite Muslims, all Sunni Muslims who aren't engaged in jihad, all Christians, all Jews, and all atheists. Kill them all. You don't even have to identify with her. Just go off and kill. Don't even have to communicate what your target is. Just go off and terrorize and kill. Folks, when we started Ramadan, I reported that the Abominator celebrated a Ramadan festival, talking about how wonderful it is to be a Muslim. And at the same time, virtually on every continent on this planet, in France, you had a worker cut off his boss's head and cover it with Islamic professions of faith. The worst form of coercion through fear is crucifixion. That's why the Quran orders Muslims to crucify their victims. Nothing is more terrorizing or coercive than crucifixion. That's why they do it. That's why the Quran endorses it. This follow-on article says the attacks came one after the other in the space of a few hours, and they can't figure out what the connection is. As we read ahead. In France, a decapitated body covered in Arabic writing was found after an attacker rammed his car into a gas container, triggering an explosion. In Kuwait, a suicide bomber blew himself up in a packed Shiite mosque during Friday prayers, killing 24. In Tunisia, a gunman opened fire at a popular tourist hotel, killing at least 37 people. There is no evidence that these attacks were deliberately coordinated, but coming so close together on the same day in 3 countries on 3 different continents, they underscored the far-reaching and fast-growing influence of the Islamist group Islamic State, Western politicians said. These Western politicians aren't smart enough to understand that the common denominator here is simple. It was the beginning of Ramadan. And in celebration of this immorality, Muslims kill. That's the common denominator. Wake up to that reality. And yet they want to blame it on the Islamic State, as if the Islamic State is different than Islam, when the Islamic State is the purest personification of Islam in the world today.